Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the To-Do List. I am Eric Fisher. This is the show where we talk to the people behind the productivity. This time, I am bringing you a roundtable of people who also talk about productivity. It's me, Steve Dotto, and Mike Vardy. This is a very large chunk or excerpt from a weekly show that we do live on Blab. It's called the Productivity Powerhouse Hour. I think that's what we're calling it. Anyway, you can find it, and you can find us on Blab at blab.im/Eric with a K, the letter J, Fisher. If you go there, you'll find the replays of past episodes, including this one, if you would like to watch them, or you can listen through this at your leisure to get a taste for it first. In this conversation we had live in front of a online studio audience, we talked about some opening news about Evernote having some layoffs and a couple other things like that. And then we get into the meat of the conversation, which was really truly about task management and project management software. Is there a difference between the two of those things? What are the different options that are out there? We did not cover every single one, but we did a good initial broad swath touch on all of most of them, as poorly as that is stated. So I really hope that you enjoy this. I hope that you look forward to and even subscribe to our future shows. And before we get into that, I wanted to let you also know that we have a new supporter here at Beyond the To-Do List called Transpose. That's Transpose, Transpose. And they are a new awesome platform that helps you manage everything. Yes, everything. It's got drag and drop simplicity, tables, calendars, Kanban views for managing projects, contacts, content, and more. I was sitting in with one of the creators of this, and they were walking me through it, and they were showing me how there were pre-made templates in there, over 200,000 of them. And I could pick and choose them to use for personal and business uses. He was showing me, I mean, he did this on the fly, and it blew my mind. He created a template for future episodes of Beyond the To-Do List right there that I could use with guest names, their website, if they had, a landing page they wanted to direct to, what date that it would publish, that you could throw it on a calendar in there, all that different stuff. It was pretty amazing. And he described Transpose as a pretty decent hybrid between the ubiquitousness and ever capture of Evernote and the OneNote, Microsoft OneNote functionality where there's templates and things like that. I'm telling you, this is going to be a pretty big deal, if not for me, for everyone else as well. So I would love it for you to check them out and tell them that you heard about them from Beyond the To-Do List. You can do that by going to beyondthetodolist.com/transpose. Check that out. Go to beyondthetodolist.com/transpose. Let them know that I sent you, and you will be hearing more from them, from me, over the next few weeks as I talk about the different features that it has and what I'm using it for. Because yes, I am a user. Anyway, let's get into the conversation.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Productivity Powerhouse. I am Steve Dotto, your erstwhile host, and along with me, admittedly weird, Eric Fisher and Mike Vardy. Just before we began the show today, Eric says, I'm a little bit weird, so we have to. So I think we should just give him that hang that handle on him. A little bit weird, Eric Fisher. We are going to be talking about all sorts of things productivity today. And we're going to be starting things off with talking about, I think before, I didn't tell you guys this, but before we do, I want to talk to you about these Evernote layoffs.
We did that last week.
But I know we did that last week, but I've got more information since then.
Oh, ooh, tell us.
Well, it's that there's been a lot of deflections within the ranks within Evernote as well. Apparently, with Phil Libben stepping down and the new CEO stepping in, there's been a lot of discontent in the ranks at Evernote, which surprised me a little bit. And so it's sort of the blooms off the rose to a certain extent with Evernote. It's still they've got 150 million users, but their revenue doesn't necessarily match those numbers, as far as what you'd expect from those numbers. They're a healthy company. It's not like they're going to be in any danger or anything like that. But within the organization, I think there was a lot of discontent, and I suspect that a lot of the discontent came from their product map in the past. That we all noticed they were releasing products that just weren't ready for prime time. They weren't properly tested. There was no culture of A/B testing or user testing within the organization, which kind of makes sense when you think about some of the ways that some of the apps were released to us and some of the functionality. It's interesting that within all that chaos comes out probably their best app, which I think they acquired from the outside, which was Scannable, which has its as far as I'm concerned might be the app of the year. It's just brilliant as far as its application. But there was a little bit more going on behind the scenes. They say some of the one floor in particular in their head office is almost empty. You could shoot a cannon through it and not hit anybody. But having said that, no, that's right. I'm cross-pollinating the Twitter layoffs, which I read about.
Right. I was going to say
that. I'm getting a little bit confused. No, I that was all Evernote. So any comments, guys, as I change the title for us here? Go ahead.
You mentioned that you were surprised of the defections. Is that what you're saying? Like you were
I'm surprised that there was a lot. See, absolutely.
I'm not, because I think that when you go from one CEO, Phil, who basically was one of the main, he was the visionary behind. I mean, and Andrew, Eric, and I both talked to Andrew Sinkoff, right? You've had him on your show too, right, Eric? Eric?
Not sure.
No,
I don't think so.
Okay, I've had him on my show, and one of the things that and I'll throw that into the sidebar a little bit later. But one of the things that I mean, when you're shifting from like Phil, who was like the founder, essentially, like the guy, one of the main, the main driving forces, if not the main driving force behind Evernote as a company, and then you move to someone who was brought in from Google, who operate differently. Like, let's face it, they do. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see people go, "Uh-oh, the culture shift's about to turn really radically. I'm out of here." Like, so I'm not really necessarily surprised. I'm not necessarily surprised that there's been some challenges, but there's challenges going on at Twitter too, as we just discussed.
Right.
So, I mean, I think when you're dealing with, I think there was an article saying the first, and I'll find it, one of the first unicorns, like Evernote, the first unicorn, which is what they call Silicon Valley startups that are like amazing and hard to find that do really, really well. I'm not surprised. I think how they kind of not reform, but how they kind of make these changes work. And I do agree that there were some apps like Evernote Food and Evernote Hello and stuff like that probably didn't need to be focused on. They've got a new user interface that they're working with right now. Evernote does. I don't think they acquired Scannable. I think they built it. I'm not 100% sure. I'm looking that up. I'm pretty sure they built it.
They acquired
Sketch.
I know that.
They acquired Sketch and they acquired Penultimate, but they didn't. I don't believe they acquired.
They never made either one 100% stable.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And people, longtime users of both Sketch and Penultimate, were choked that I mean, they broke them. That's kind of what people said. So
you bought it and broke it.
I just got used to restarting Sketch all the time. It's just like, I've used it like 3 or 4 times. I better restart it.
So, I mean, I don't know.
Right now, though.
Yeah.
It's working better now for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if anything, it just goes to show that and I think we've talked about this before. I know we've talked about it, is that when you're a startup and you've got VC funding, and then all of a sudden have to charge users because you need to show some results for what's been going on, and they're not enough paid user base to, kind of make up for that or to show that those results are there. That's when things start to get into trouble. And I think one of the biggest changes that kind of threw people for a loop, and I know I talked to Andrew Sinkoff about this, was when Evernote added those pricing tiers. And one of the big options that people really got choked about was the email to Evernote option that went away. And that, I think, still stings a lot of. So I think you're going to see a lot of people.
I'm personally glad they did that. People should pay for Evernote.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that so many people are used to, like, this app is free. Why should I pay for an app?
Yeah,
right?
well, because you want them to be in business as you rely on them over time. So let's shelve the conversation about Evernote and Twitter because we can return to it, I think, at the end. But we promised to talk today about task apps. So I think we should dive into the task apps and all of the refreshes that are going on in the task apps, and then we'll return to the politics and the business side of what's going on in the productivity world. Because I do want to just touch on Twitter. A report that I read about, Twitter's horrible cutbacks, which include, by the way, the ability for any employee to just with a simple email spend 3 weeks in a remote office. One of their offices. I want to work out of Taipei this week. I'm just going to go there and work and allowing them to do that kind of thing, which is pretty awesome.
Man, I wish.
I know. Talk about it.
My remote office is
the garage
attic office thing.
I feel like working in the kitchen this week where I have heat. That's Eric's remote. So Mike, I guess let's start with the Todoist story because Todoist has been in the mail a lot lately.
Yep.
In the mail. I'm sorry.
The electronic mail.
Well, probably email. You probably received emails from them, so they've been in your inbox.
They've been in the news a bit. So what's going on with those folks at Todoist?
Well, they just did basically a massive change to kind of their branding. Their logo has changed. It no longer looks like the Toronto Dominion logo
which, by the way,
it looked a lot like
our American friends do not know this, but your TD Bank, that one that's a green TD, that's actually Toronto Dominion Bank.
Yep.
And as I walked through New York last week, I kept saying America's Bank. Toronto Dominion is based in Canada, people. It's been a Canadian financial institution for nigh on 100 years.
Yep. Yeah. It's the same with BMO. BMO is Bank of Montreal. Anyways, but
the Canadians are coming. The Canadians are coming.
They're here, guys. You won't know.
Listening to the Democrats last night, the banks aren't going to have much power if those guys get back in anyhow.
You guys got any space for me to move in with you come next November? Anyway.
Hey, our elections this coming week. We may want to move down there.
There you go.
We've got our elections in 6 days. We have no idea what's going to happen here.
None. I think we're going to end up with a minority. But anyway, so what's going to happen? So with Todoist, what they did was they did a brand refresh. They also made some significant changes to all of their apps. And some people were really pleased by it. And anytime you do a big change like this, what they did was they made more natural language stuff going on in the entry bar for tasks. And I'm sure anybody who's been using Todoist probably noticed that if you typed in, pick up Saturday newspaper and it would actually take that Saturday in the taskbar and make it a scheduled appointment for Saturday. So they had to draw that back a bit because I had a couple of clients who have addresses that they want to go visit. So like go to the 4th Street Arcade and 4th would show up and all of a sudden it would say October 4th, go to the Street Cafe. And I'm like, no. So it went too far the other way. But the other thing they did was they removed the flagging option as a, as to be as apparent as it was before. And I think that was done for mobile because on mobile now it looks a lot better, but on the desktop and web-based apps, the flags not only were removed and now the colors of the colors of the circles are changed as opposed to the insides of the boxes. And they also changed them from different shades of blue to red, orange, and yellow. They're trying to bring back some of their Power Apps, that Power Apps project that they were trying to work on where they had the extensions and all that. So they've been making some significant changes, and I don't think it's as, let's put it this way, I don't think it was as dramatic as another tool's changes that were made recently, but they were still pretty significant, and it threw a lot of people off initially.
So their new icon is these little this kind of the Sergeant chevron thing happening.
It does. People were comparing it to the Buffer logo as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any idea what it represents?
It represents getting a bunch of things done. It's got like the 3 check marks inside of a box.
Oh, they're check marks in a box.
That's what they, I believe, represent.
In the app, it looks like they're, it looks like the chevron off of a sergeant's sleeve to me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they tried to go for. Unlike Asana, who I'm sure we'll get to, they didn't really. I haven't seen anything that explains what the new logo is about. Again, they're a smaller team than Asana too. So Asana went like all in with like, here's why we did what we did, and here's all the changes, and they really rolled it out in a way that was far more. Yeah, there you go. There's a logo. Thanks, Eric.
So
Yeah, I remember seeing it and thinking, I don't know if I like this.
Let's put it this way. Every time I saw the logo, I thought of TD Bank. Like
the
I
old
just
one.
did. The old one. The old one.
Well, that's sus,
No, I don't think so.
And what's the old?
Not me. It wasn't me because I had no idea what Toronto whatever was. So.
Yeah, it's okay. Just
I don't know what Toronto is. Anyway, kidding. That's like the only place in Canada I've ever been.
I mean, Eric, you used to do us too, right?
Right. So I don't know. I think my question is this: how much of the choice, or what percentage of the decision to use a certain task management app is the UI, and when they start making changes to that, how much of your usability, changes?
How many people do you disenfranchise? Here's the thing about task apps, and I think you're bang on, Eric, is Mike and I have discussed this many times. There is no right choice. There are 6 or 8 task apps.
Well, there's one right choice, which is your choice.
Yes.
The one you use.
When you change the UI significantly and ask people to learn to use it again, you open the door for experimentation. At that point there, they go, I saw Dotto posting a bunch of stuff on that Trello. It's supposed to be a pretty cool app. Let me take a look at that because I've got to learn this new one anyways.
Right.
And I think that you just open the door for experimentation. And yet we see these task managers wholeheartedly revising. I mean, we just saw it from Wunderlist. We saw a complete refresh. We've seen a complete refresh now.
They've done it a number of times, yeah. Wunderlist.
And I wonder if it's just because the nature of the task app is there's so much good competition out there that once they've captured a group, is they feel they have to revolutionize the product over and over again in order to kind of capture another third of the market, of their cap size, and another third of their install base, and another third as a way of growing. And I wonder if it's almost insecurity that causes the companies to do this, because Todoist does it sad. Well, it's an awesome app. I mean, I didn't need more bells and whistles. It had great integration with Evernote. It had great integration with my email. It had a beautiful Gmail Chrome plugin that worked like a hot damn, and I'd figured out how to use. And now they're going to say, Steve, all that stuff that you used, we might want to change that up, or you're going to have to learn to use it again.
I don't even know how many people combined, you and me, Vardy, have evangelized to Todoist. So,
I'm not. I just put in the link, but in the sidebar, by the way, that they do explain some of the changes in the evolution of their logo and stuff. I don't think that the changes that they made were that radical but as Hectic Dad 01 says, it doesn't even take a significant change. Small changes can, basically any small change will make people go, whoa, this isn't what I was used to, so I'm out. Which brings us back to what we were talking about initially. Like if Evernote is making some interface changes, as soon as those come out, you're going to see. I mean, the last time Evernote made changes, adding work chat and things like that, people, were like, "I'm out." Like
they forced us into that new interface in the web version.
Absolutely.
When did the new ones due out? By the way,
the new Evernote.
Yeah,
it just says it's in beta. I've signed up to test out it. I haven't heard anything. So, we'll see.
Cramping my style. I'm planning a new version of my Evernote course.
Yeah. Well, imagine how, you and I have the Task Apps Made Easy course. We have to redo Asana, Wunderlist, and Todoist now. So really, we should just wait till Trello makes a change, and then we can actually do it.
Wait a minute. What do you mean we?
Yeah, fair point. And do better with Asana, the product that I've championed for a while. I mean, I've got to redo that whole thing too. So that's another thing, is that guys like us, that talk about these tools, it almost makes us not want to do, like someone was mentioning, screenshots, do videos, do things like that. I mean, when you're talking about every, 6 months a reiteration, because that seems to be like any major changes are happening every 6 months, and every wholesale changes are happening maybe every couple of years. It makes it challenging. That's why we're not seeing as many books about these things, by the way, too. We're seeing more like what we're doing, courses and stuff, because you can change them a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So we got
a couple questions.
let's go into that, and then I think we've kind of talked a little bit about the Todoist change, and then let's talk about Asana, which Mike is right deep in. So Hectic Dad asks, Mike, I know you are two different. I know you use two different task managers, home and work. Can you all discuss why not split your task management across two solutions?
I'm not the only one that does this. Eric does it too. Eric and I have talked about this before.
Yeah, in fact, we did it on this show. I think when we originally kicked off, we said, okay, what are you using? Mm-hmm. And we went round robin, whatever.
But the reason I use two is I prefer the interface of Todoist for personal, like it allows me to hone in on the stuff that I need to do personally. I use Asana for team-based stuff because it's easier for me to scale Asana up with more people. So I've got like 7 or 8 people plus. Honestly, a couple people that I work from the outside actually use Asana, so it makes it easier for me to use that. And then how I use it is I just create a label in Todoist called Asana, and anything that's living in Asana, I would just go, okay, I'm going to go to Asana mode and check that out. So it does separate those things. I talked to a gentleman, Jared Brown, on my podcast recently, and he actually shared an article about the guys that one of the heads from Baramet. I believe it's Trello and OmniFocus. And basically what he does is he creates redundancies. So he'll say, oh, I found all these tasks that I need to do that people have said for me to do in the team-based app. I'm going to bring them into OmniFocus so I can have focus on it. So yeah, that's why I just like to have those separations there. And then I go into Asana and spend time in Asana for part of the day, but Todoist is the app that I look at overarchingly for all my stuff. What about you, Eric? Is it the same kind of deal?
Yeah, and there's been at least somewhat of a change for me structurally. Social Media Examiner, my day job, uses Trello for everything because we're always moving projects forward. And so I've gone to the place of I have my Trello account and I'm connected in boards there, and that gets things get forwarded, and my roles in those projects get moved forwarded or tagged or to do dated or deadline is a better word. Duh. But then I've got my own personal board as well as the team I'm closely working with has its own board. So I've basically given up using OmniFocus as my own work one for Social Media Examiner, and now using my own personal Trello board there. So then all that world is in one place there. And then for home, it's things, because that's the most simplified in some senses. It's the one my wife will use. So that's, again, there's the choice, the one that they will use.
And Hectic Dad has a follow-up saying, should somebody actually use two? And
you don't have to.
You don't have to. The reason I use two is because I work with multiple. I mean, if it was just me working on my own, I would probably just use Todoist at this point because I don't need to have that scalability of Asana. But again, that's just my own personal preference. So I don't think, I think if you only need to use one and get, and really use it well. The approach is always more important than the app, but make sure that you kind of get in there and say, okay, I'm going to really master this one. I mean, Potty Chap saying I use to, to separate those. I used to just use Todoist, and then I realized that Productivityist was growing to a point where it couldn't all stay in there. So it had to go to Asana. And then I created a means to get me to go to Asana. So that way I would go there. So I would say if you don't need to use two, then don't. But if you find that you can't get that separation, then that's where you'd want to look at it.
The separation for me, I hear you say that word and I think focus. I hear silos, because in order to get certain things done, I have to pretend other parts of the world don't exist right now, or that there's only a certain way for those people to get a hold of me in case of an emergency while I'm in that silo. So that's one of the reasons why I would choose different ones. He's following up. How do you know if you only need to use one? Again, try using one. And if you feel like you've got too much bleed over, you might be a candidate. You might be a Todoist redneck.
It's vastly preferable to use one. I mean, at the end of the day, it's preferable if you can make it work for you. But I think a lot of people don't have that option because at work they're in Outlook, so they're already kind of locked and loaded in one environment, and so then they want something for their personal life and for their kind of anything that's off their desk.
One more quick point. If you one of the ways to try to figure it out, if you want a tactical way, is in, like, let's say you're using Todoist or Trello, create a board or a list, like create a board in Trello that's for personal, a board for professional, and make sure you're flipping back and forth between them. If you find there's friction there and you're missing stuff, you're going to see it. In Todoist, have like large top level projects called personal and professional, and if you find that one's not getting paid attention to, that's going to send signals. In Asana, make sure you create 2 different workspaces. Like, make it so that you have this capability, have those silos within that one app, and if it's not working, then you need to have a separate app completely free. And sometimes the separation isn't 2 apps; it's an app and a bullet journal or a digital or a paper tool. It could be either or.
It's not. It never is.
But I know, Steve, you're not a big fan of paper. But the point is,
I am.
Yeah, I am too.
For me, electronic is the hard copy, but for the day that I'm in, that's the paper copy, because I want to see what I've got, be able to not have to keep looking stuff up online and just look down and be like, oh, that's next. Oh, that's done.
Do you print off or do you write it down?
I write it down, because and often I'll do it the night before so that when I come in the next day, I personally call this handing the baton to myself for the next day, or my future self, whatever. So
do you, at the end of it, do you say, from faltering hands we pass the torch?
No, but I don't get that reference. So
okay, never mind.
I'm not storming the castle.
The Montreal Canadiens.
See, okay. I don't know.
A lot more questions come in, so we should probably address.
Yes, we should. We should go on. By the way, I just so you know, I don't use multiple task managers. I use every task manager because I'm always trying to demo. So I don't. I'm a very poor example because I just flip from one to another.
What are some of the other ones that we've not? I mean, somebody's mentioned Nosby or Nosby, however you say it.
Yep.
There's a few others. Again, I'm curious to see
CRMs. Sorry.
As we're answering some of the questions, I want an OmniFocus. We didn't even mention that. That's weird.
It's getting mentioned in the sidebar because we got some people asking questions there that we've been responding to a little bit. Thanks to everybody responding.
Before we go to the questions, then, I know in our task app course, Mike, one of the questions that we really tried to help people with is, how do you decide which one? Now, I've got a simple criteria for deciding which one works for me. If somebody's coming to you and say, I have a blank slate, how do I choose which task app works best for me? And I don't want to waste a lot of time, exploring them all. How do you advise people in that particular case?
How to choose? Again, we've talked about the whole idea of, you want something that you're going to get into fairly simply. And someone actually, this is a nice one to kind of tie into a question that's in there. Carly says she's been, quote, using OmniFocus, but find that she hasn't really been using it. That's the problem. You haven't really been using it.
Yeah.
Like,
so is that you or is that the app?
Well, that's the thing, right? And then how would you recommend switching to another app? I don't think the app's the problem. In fact, OmniFocus is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, task management application for individual work on the Mac, period, and on iOS, period. So instead of saying, how do I switch the app, the question should be, how do I use it more consistently? And that could be, and the problem, I think, is what happens is that people are often said, this is how you should use it. And they don't spend enough time figuring out how they should use it. So, they'll take GTD elements, which is, again, Hectic Dad mentions this as well. Buying bread is an equivalent task to talking to boss. Those are completely different tasks.
Talk to bread.
Saying that going to grocery shopping is actually a project versus, buy jam is, so it's all, there are some semantics there. I think when you're choosing one, the key is to look at all the options that are being mentioned in places like this, and recommendations from others. If you have a choice, in some cases you won't, and just give it consistent use. I talked yesterday to a gentleman, Johan, and we were talking about using Outlook as a task manager, and he came up with some really compelling ways to use Outlook to manage tasks.
Yeah,
and in some cases, if what you have to do is say, okay, this is the tool I have. This is the tool that I've been either using, and this lends itself well to the whole changes that Todoist and Asana have been making. Instead of saying, I'm out, they made changes, I'm gone, say, okay, what are these changes? How can I leverage them? How can I, do I need to create more labels that are going to be more effective in Todoist? Do I need to start using Asana differently because of the way it's laid out? Like, how can I make this work as opposed to just tossing the baby out with the bathwater? So when you're making a choice, I think the key is say, okay, I've decided, and then give it like 30 days of consistent use, at least 30 days.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And I think then it comes down to, okay, well then still, how do I choose? Well, your budget.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately, most of these things do the exact same stuff. You can do contexts, or variations on what that means. You can put tasks in, you can group tasks together, you can set up calendar integration, email integration. And again, some of these vary, but for the most part, most of them do most of the stuff. It's just a UI change or difference. I mean, am I wrong?
No.
I mean, really, that's what it comes down to.
And then the other problem that people come up against is they say, and this is being mentioned later, is they say, okay, they take too long to set them up. So they tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak. And then they're saying, well, I'm not getting enough done. It must be the app's fault. Instead of saying, okay, you know what? OmniFocus is a classic example of this because it's a tool that really is as simple as you need it to be, but as powerful as you want it, or simple as you want it to be, but as powerful as you need it to be. You can make a simple list in OmniFocus and not bring in perspectives and all these other things into the fray. But if you want to, you can do that down the line. So people try to go, I'm going to go all in. It's the same thing that happened with Evernote. And Steve, you and I have talked about this before, is people go, if I put everything in Evernote, then I'm going to be organized. But if they don't have a sense of, okay, am I going to use notebooks or am I going to use tags, and then just build it out slowly, they're going to have a digital mess that they can't get.
The problem with that is
the room's clean and I've thrown everything in the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do try and just kind of they try and create all of their infrastructure right at the beginning rather than just start to use it. So, kind of moving slowly and starting to put kind of one thing in at a time. Here's the criteria that I tell people is in how I would make a decision myself is what fits best with the other tools that are essential in my life. And I would have originally said Evernote. And I still do think Evernote, it has to work with Evernote. Whatever task app I use has to work well with Evernote, integrate well with Evernote. But increasingly, I'm recognizing that it might be Slack that it has to integrate with and work well with.
Maybe, yeah.
But that gives me that narrows down the list of what I want to be using.
Except what happens now, and this bothers me in the task management space, is now all of them are trying to build a Slack-like tool inside of the task app.
Yes.
Asana's just done this.
Have they?
Yes.
Really?
Evernote did that with Evernote Chat, and it's not work chat, and it's not working.
So one of the big changes Asana, one of the big focuses they've made is they've got team conversations now, which they had before, but they're playing an emphasis on it in the new design. You can create tasks from team conversations now. So right inside a team conversation, you can drop a document in there. You can create a task right from inside of it. So really they're trying to, Asana does integrate with Slack still. People can still do that. We do that with Productivityist. But now they're trying to make it, okay, well, you don't need Slack because you can have your conversations inside of Asana and you can create a task inside that conversation. But the problem, much like with Evernote Work Chat, is that it brings that community. I prefer to have, let's talk about it outside and let's do it inside. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's talk. Like, let's go to our meeting and then let's go away and do our work. They're trying to bring both of these things in. And Basecamp's got a design change coming up soon, too, that does the exact same thing. So what the problem is they're saying, I see a tool like Slack, instead of saying, how do we integrate with them? How do we make it so that people who have already adopted this tool that just caught fire, instead they're saying, you know what? Let's build something that will compete with it and cause more, in my mind, cause more confusion for our users. That's what I think. And then all of a sudden, you've got a tool that instead of doing one thing really, really well, it tries to do 4 or 5 things okay, which is exactly what's happened with Evernote.
Is there one task management app that is flying in the face of that and saying, no, we're staying to our guns? Is it Wunderlist?
No,
Wunderlist?
I think OmniFocus is the one that's always done that.
Yeah, but it's Mac only, right?
It is Mac only. It is. Which is part of it flying in the face. People have said, build it for Android, build it for this. And they've got ways, if you're on a Windows machine, that you can send an email to it and all that stuff. The only one I think that's kind of, I think Nosby's the only one that really kind of is flying in the face and saying, we're not going to build these things into it. And like, they still have really tight Evernote integration, things like that. But no, and Wunderlist, we don't know what's going on with Wunderlist because they were acquired by Microsoft. For all we know, what's going to happen is they're going to integrate tighter with Outlook, which isn't the worst thing in the world.
I will say that so far, the Microsoft things that Microsoft has acquired, they haven't made them worse. Their recent flurry of acquisitions, I can't say that anything has gotten worse.
No, even going
some
back,
people would say Skype to a certain degree, but
what, by being more stable?
No, I mean by changing the interface. I mean, again, it has been more stable, but some of the user interface stuff, again, back to user interface. So
Skype's always sucked, anyways.
Well, there you go.
That's my opinion. I think not the opinion of this panel.
We're seeing a lot of the idea that one of the comments here, and I agree, is integrations are. If you can integrate tightly, and this was mentioned earlier, like IFTT and Zapier and stuff like that, like why not use those tools instead? Say, hey, you know what? Let's develop a relationship with Zapier that allows us to, work better with Evernote. That's where, because what's happening is they're all, populate itself. Everything's.
I would rather see them do API level integration. Frankly, I'd rather see them integrating directly in and not bring a third party in.
Well, that's fine, but if they don't want to go in that direction, provide the
question
option.
Is, why would they not want to? What is stopping them from doing that? And then what does that mean for their roadmap in the future?
Market share. They want to be the tool that everyone goes to, right? They want to be the one that, like, Asana wants to be the tool that everybody uses, and Todoist wants to be the tool that everybody uses. But the problem is, and we talked about this, there is no one task manager. There is no perfect task manager.
No.
And everyone's got this quest to build a perfect task management tool or the perfect project management tool. But they're forgetting about and we talked about this, they're forgetting about the one thing that makes it the perfect or ideal task, and it's the user. And every user is different. Right? I mean, for some people, the perfect project management, task management tool is a whiteboard and a sheet of paper. Right? Yeah. I think that they're chasing the wrong thing.
Okay. Well, let's shelve this conversation for now because they aren't going to listen to us. If they do, God bless them.
So Hectic Dad said, what are the best approaches that we ought to be using rather than the apps? Pick a methodology, pick, and make it work for you. If you're a Covey guy, then use the Covey method. If you're this, pick a methodology, study that, and then apply that to an app. That's what I would suggest. You might even want to try the Now Your method. And any of them out there, you could try. That's what I would do.
Which task app works best with the Now Your method, Mike?
I've done actually. Almost all of them work very well with the daily map process, and I've actually done audio recording.
Not answer the question.
I'm not joking.
What's funny is it's almost like,
are you going to endorse?
No. Listen. It's almost like people are saying, guys, tell me which career should I choose? And we're like, dude, we can't tell you.
Oh, I can.
We can give you some options. We can ask you sure you can, but we can ask you some questions and we can tell you some options, but it's never good. I mean, you've got to try some stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and we actually did this. I mean, Eric and I have been studying this stuff for a long time,
right.
And we were guys that said, "Oh, this app will make us more productive." And the more you spend time in this realm, you're like, "No." As Tom says, apps are tools. The app comes second. The approach comes first. So, and to answer your question, Steve, I mean, I sat down and said, "How can I make this methodology that I've crafted work? Like, how does it work with every app?" And it doesn't work with every app. But I'm saying, like, I've recorded about 12. I sent an audio to everybody who bought it saying, this is what here we go. How do we choose?
What career should I choose? They literally asked that question that's so awesome.
You better watch out because
that's so good.
Anyway, let's shoot this question, this line of questioning going forever.
Okay.
Well, I want to
I tried to stop it, then you said just one more thing.
I tried to put a button on it, and I opened it up again.
But I want to give a closure. I want to give some closure to this.
Sure.
And then I'm going to close after you.
It feels like we dropped off a cliff. Ultimately, what I think we're saying is there's a lot of tools you can choose from, but what you really do need to do is figure out what you need the tool to do. First off, you also need to choose a tool based on methodology first, budget probably as well, because there are some great free ones, and then commit to testing one for a certain period of time, and then move forward deciding if that's right for you or not.
I would put a caveat on that. I would say don't commit to testing one. Choose one and use it, and don't look back.
I don't have any argument with that.
It does not work. And then, if it does not work, you have to have a heart-to-heart with yourself to determine whether or not you're going to use a task management app at all.
Yeah, some people even say use a calendar. I'm not one of those people.
You know, I'm old school. Back in the day, I can remember when I first got Excel before any of this stuff was around. I used Excel for everything. It was my calendar. It was my appointment book. I used it for writing my letters. I used it for, of course, for calculating the odds spreadsheet. You can make any tool work for you. And I was incredibly efficient using Excel because I knew what I was doing, and I got to know the tool inside and out. I don't know Excel anymore. It's very confusing now. But having said that, if you know all of these apps, all of these top level apps, if you do some research and you choose one of the apps that we're talking about today and you actually use it, it's going to make you more productive. It's going to do the job. That's the end of the story, really.
Steve, do you have a place you're wanting to jump off to? Because I still see a couple questions that are pretty.
Well, we promised to talk about Todoist and Asana and the changes them. But if people want to continue on this vein, I'm happy with that. I just want to make sure that we actually, for once, cover the content that we advertised.
we can touch on Asana. Do you want me to talk about the changes Asana made?
Okay, and then we can loop back into the questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
Are you in concurrence, Eric? This is a little bit of a democracy, not
a little bit of a democracy, like every other democracy. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So Asana made some very significant changes more so than I would say than Todoist made. And I'm going to put that in the chat here. They changed their logo. They changed the layout, but they had what's interesting, if you've been using Asana for a while, is that they already started to change that layout a little bit anyway, which sparked a huge backlash from a lot of people. The way the categories were arranged, you couldn't drag things from projects to projects very easily. Some of the changes that they made in the new Asana, I mean, they've changed the color scheme. The logo has changed. They describe how they've done that. The coloring is a bit more, oddly enough, Zen-like, which is, I mean, Asana is a yoga type pose, right? So, or yoga pose, I think it's the name of what you would call a yoga pose. I can't exactly remember, but they really jumped, as I mentioned earlier, conversations. Like, it's the first thing they mentioned in this post after they go through some of the color changes. So you've got public conversations. You can follow and unfollow conversations. You can link directly to a conversation. There's that kind of stuff. So that was the big thing that they focused on in this new update. Other than like kind of changing the user experience overall, they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to focus away from comments, which they're still there, but they're shifting people towards the idea of team conversations, which again kind of flies in the face of using something like Slack. And yes, Podjap, I did see the design of the size of the Asana design team now, and that incorporates mobile and all that stuff. And that's the one thing that they always kind of struggled with initially. I thought is that the mobile experience was always far less desirable. They've changed that. So it's I've been using it, and I got the chance to use the new version of Asana about 2 weeks prior to it actually being released. I like it. I like the new look. It feels more. It does feel more calming to me. It doesn't feel as rigid.
Asana always felt like there was a lot of pieces that were put into it that weren't really. It felt like there was a lot of add-ons.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more. It feels like it's got a bit more flow to it now, and I mean, the new logo, a lot of people are like, well, what's with the new logo? And they describe that as well. I like the color scheme as well. I think we had enough blue with a lot of the tools out there, so we've gone with like a off. But I mean, that's
Google's
just
going to research the best color. I'm using it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, they did spend a lot of time on research for color and stuff like that. So, again, the thing is that once you're invested in a tool, and I mean, I've seen a lot of people have said, well, you remove this, and then other people are saying, oh, I love the new colors, and I was like, okay, and you can for now switch back to the old Asana. There's an option to say, take me to the old Asana. And it's jarring now when you go back. You're like, whoa, what is this? So, and yes, Potty Chat makes a good point. You see only the elements that you actually need to see. Before you saw almost everything. Now you can really hone it in. So they've kind of created a little bit more focus there. So I think that I don't know where that comment's coming from, Pizza Slice, but whatever. We never said anything like that. But anyway, I think that
I'll say that.
I think that Asana's made some significant changes, and they made moves in the right direction with this change.
So, and are they going to? Do we see a change coming in their pricing model, as we've seen a lot of the companies shift their pricing? Because this has always been one of the. I mean, was it 15 or 10 users before?
15 users for free. Yep. I can see that. I don't think you're going to see any kind of increase in pricing anytime soon. I think if anything, they pay attention to like what companies like Evernote and that do. I don't think we're going to see any changes in Todoist pricing either. I think we're going to basically be, I think you're going to see it. I think what they need to do, they may do it down the road after they see how this new interface and new user experience is, but I can't see it happening anytime soon.
By the way, I do like Hectic's dad's opinion that this is actually an oligarchy with me as the king.
Oh, jeez.
What?
Fair point.
I think it's reasonable. I think I'm the most qualified.
Well, you are the oldest.
Well, I'm the one that can kick you guys off with their heads. And I'm not. Well, I am the oldest.
You are the oldest. There's no getting around that.
Okay.
All right. Hectic Dad.
So okay.
Short list of 5 task managers. Well, I mean,
okay. Let's each pick one.
Well,
and give them a short list.
All right, Eric.
So, Hectic Dad. Before we do that, are you talking OS agnostic, or we can be OS specific?
I think you have to be agnostic because you can't control what other people are using.
Okay.
Really.
All right. Well, let's give the list, because I think a list. I mean, at least that way we're.
I think it's actually pretty easy to come up with a top 5.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Except we're going to argue it. Once we hit 4, we're going to argue. So Todoist, and Asana, and Trello.
Yep. I'd say those 3 are up there.
Because those that I've done my job. Now you guys come up with the last 2.
Well, we just talked about Asana.
I said Asana.
Oh, you said it?
Yeah.
So those are the 3 that.
I hear that. Todoist, Trello, and Asana are the ones you said.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez. What else is agnostic?
Doesn't have to be agnostic.
But in my mind it does. Nozbe is probably the next one.
Nozbe. Okay. Yep. I'd say Wunderlist is there.
Probably.
And the reason I mention Wunderlist is because of the simplicity factor. I think it's a gateway tool for sure.
First one's free.
Yeah.
So is that it?
Task.
Minimum of 5. Now we're getting more. Basecamp. Here's the thing about Basecamp. I'm reserving judgment on Basecamp because I want to see what the new interface is, because I think they took a step backwards with their last one.
Basecamp works if you're a web development company or something like that, with the way that the projects are laid out. And its only real competition on the list that we talked about was Asana, and Asana is just a much more elegant tool and far cheaper.
And some people are mentioning Slack, but I'm like, that's not a task management system. No. That's a communication tool.
And Evernote swipes I've heard good things about, but I don't think
it's gimmicky.
It is. It's not. It's too limited. How does the list change for a team? I don't know that it does.
Well, the order would change. The first tools we would talk about would be Asana, then Trello.
Asana and Trello are probably the top level team ones first.
And if you are in a team environment, then you should probably have a look at Basecamp, because depending in here, it would depend on what are your clients used to using, et cetera. One of the things that none of us live in a vacuum. And so it's one thing to get your team working on tools, but then you have people on the outside that also work with you. Getting them into the same environment, be it customers, be it freelancers, is also a consideration as you do this. So if I was a web development company, I would, even though I like Asana, I would probably look long and hard at Basecamp, just because it's been so established in that community for so long.
Yeah, I would say Basecamp is definitely. And another one that people don't really talk about too much is Smartsheet for teams. You mentioned Excel, Steve. Well, basically it's Excel on steroids.
Yes.
It's like, so, I mean, that's something that you might want. I mean, if you're looking at team-based stuff, I would say Asana, again, Trello, Basecamp, Smartsheet. And I would even go as far as to say, Nosby does have team-based stuff, obviously. Todoist, you can do it. Flow is another great one developed right here in Victoria, BC.
Mac only, though, right?
Nope, it's web-based.
Oh, it's web-based.
It's web-based now, and they've integrated conversations and task stuff into it. But the problem with Basecamp, tools like Basecamp and Flow, is that you need to be a large organization that can afford to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you want to take into consideration as you look is what is the leadership and what's the kind of the trajectory line of the company. You follow a Wunderlist, and they were struggling, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to say they're going to be either acquired or they're going to fall on tough times. I imagine Remember the Milk has a similar trajectory as far as I'm concerned. So you have to consider that those companies are probably going to get acquired by somebody else, and maybe their strategy is indeed to develop a product, develop a user base, and get acquired, which was always something that I had a concern with Asana around for some reason. I'm probably wrong, but just I had the feeling with the way they were growing.
It's interesting because, the guys behind Asana, again, are the guys, two of the first initial people that were with Facebook. So you look at, and Basecamp, let's look at the trajectory of Basecamp. Basecamp, 37 Signals wasn't a massive company, but they had a massive product line, and they got rid of everything so they could focus solely on Basecamp, so far as to even change their name to Basecamp. So, that shows you where their focus is being. And same thing with MetaLab. They got rid of Ballpark and all their other stuff, and they're focusing solely on Flow in terms of that company's iteration. So,
now, let's deal with Ubi Meat's question, which is, and I'm not sure I quite understand it. Are project management tools for teams, whereas task management tool is for teams or individuals? So they're asking if there's because the nomenclature.
I think it's just nomenclature.
It's semantics.
It's semantics. I think Asana is essentially anything that has the ability to manage projects is essentially a project management tool. But task management is kind of what we talk about because it's the lower end of it. Like a task management tool can manage projects as far as I'm concerned as well. As soon as you hear project management tool, it kind of scares people. I think kind of like CRM can scare some people off as well.
Which of our applications has the highest headroom? As in the greatest amount of time before you have to switch off to a dedicated project manager, which is incredibly expensive. So which one you climb the highest up the mountain with?
Well, I think Asana and Basecamp, you don't ever have to leave if you're managing them accordingly. I think Trello even you could be fine with. I think
would not believe. If I were to show you, I don't think Steve has seen this, but if I were to show you some of the length and the depth of the board and cards and stuff inside Social Media Examiner stuff when it comes to the use of Trello and how many people are going back and forth. And it's a hive almost in a way, but it's organized and people know what they're doing and they're doing it. So
why is it organized there? How is there a king of Trello? How do you get the corporate culture in an organization which is full of freelancers and part-timers as well as staffers?
You make it mandatory.
But what have they done?
Steve, it's Michael.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the leader of the organization tries something and likes it and then shows others how to do it and then has those people show others how to do it and everybody's learning how to do the certain same things, the culture spreads. So that's how you do it. Plus Trello has a bunch of how you do it videos right there that you can watch. I need to watch some more, but
yeah, no question. Love Trello. It's always been.
Trello's great. I'm using it for some of the stuff I'm doing for audio production for productivity, just because that's the tool that my audio producer likes to use. So
yeah, and that's the thing is you get somebody that's entrenched and they won't change out of their app, and then you have to start using their app.
Which is fine again, because you just take the approach and apply it to the app. If you're good about it, you can do that. But the thing is, if you just create messes everywhere, then no one wants to go in there, right?
I hope that you enjoyed that. I know that I did. Of course, I was in the middle of it, having fun in front of an audience with some of my other productivity geeky friends. But I hope you got something out of it, too, that it wasn't just talking about different tools, but that you were able to start to think about what tools you need, how to choose the right tools, etc. And also, I hope that you will go check out the supporter for this show, Transpose, by going to beyondthetodolist.com/transpose. If you enjoyed this episode, if you got value from this, think of someone else that you know would enjoy it and let them know. Shoot them a tweet, shoot them an email, just forward it to them, however you want to do it. And let me and Steve, Dotto, and Mike Vardy know by attending our next blab. Again, you can find out when that will be by going to blab.im/Eric with a K, the letter J, FISHER. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next episode. Beyond the To-Do List is a proud member of the Noodle Mix Network. Find more of our award-winning and award-nominated podcasts to make you think, laugh, and succeed at noodle.mx. Learn how to podcast. Theorize over the TV shows Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, and Under the Dome. Laugh with our clean comedy, delve into science fiction and philosophy, learn critical thinking from movie reviews, and more at noodle.mx.